Batman v Superman gave us the worst version of Lex Luthor ever. We had to wait almost 10 years to finally get a version of the character that actually does him justice in live action. And that's thanks to Nicholas Hoult's great performance and the script written by James Gunn. But why does everyone hate Eisenberg's version and love the one from the new movie? There are 3 reasons that explain it. The first one is how each version shows the character's intelligence. This is a key part of Lex, because in every version and in all types of media, he's one of the smartest people on the planet. The weapon he uses against Superman isn't his shredded muscles, his perfect shaped head, or his green and purple armor. His real weapon is his brain, his mind, his ability to predict what Superman is going to do, and to manipulate literally everyone, from political leaders to public opinion. We see this in both Eisenberg's Luthor and Hoult's, but in totally different ways. In Batman v Superman, Lex has a few lines that sound smart, like this one.
You're psychotic. That is a 3-syllable word for any thought too big for little minds.
He also acts with this kind of superiority, like he thinks he's better than everyone else. He assumes he's the only one who really understands how dangerous Superman is, and tries to lecture everyone around him, from a congresswoman to Lois Lane. But the problem is that it's all just fancy words, because at no point does he actually prove he's smart. Lex's evil plan is to manipulate both Batman and Superman into fighting each other, hoping Batman can kill the Man of Steel. But just in case he fails, Lex has a backup plan. He creates a new creature by mixing his own blood with Zod's body, but at no point does it seem like Lex actually knows what kind of monster he's about to create. There was a chance this new thing could have kept Zod's memories or personality and tried to kill Lex the second it woke up. Remember, the last thing Zod tried to do in Man of Steel was wipe out all of humanity.
He's a very dangerous man.
But even if Lex somehow knew he was creating Doomsday, who in this version has no real consciousness or clear motivation, the plan is still super dumb. As soon as Doomsday wakes up, the first thing he does is try to kill his creator, and Lex only survives because Superman saves him. You can't even argue that Lex expected that to happen, because this version of Superman already killed Zod and a terrorist. It's not like he has some unbreakable moral code about protecting all human life. On top of that, Lex had just kidnapped and tortured his mom, so it was totally possible Superman might have killed him, or at least let him die. But the plan just keeps getting more ridiculous. Luthor's goal was to use Doomsday to kill Superman, but there was no way he could have known they'd end up killing each other at the same time. If Doomsday killed Superman like Lex wanted, what was supposed to happen next? It's not like the monster would take orders from him, and we already saw it could absorb any kind of attack, even nuclear bombs, so there's no way the world's armies could stop it. And if Doomsday is stronger than Superman, then other heroes like Flash or Aquaman wouldn't stand a chance either. This whole thing could have made more sense if Lex had put some kind of self-destruct chip in Doomsday's brain, like Valentina did with Sentry. That would still be risky, but at least the plan would have had some logic to it.
I like your plan, except it sucks, so let me do the plan, and that way it might be really good.
This bunch of plot holes in the villain's master plan makes Lex feel less like a smart guy and more like someone incredibly dumb who just thinks he's smart. That kind of trait might have worked for a different character, like a failed villain such as Captain Boomerang, who's always talking like he's a criminal mastermind, but is actually a total idiot. But it doesn't work at all for Lex Luthor, who needs to be a real genius. Hoult's Luthor, on the other hand, doesn't just say he's smart. We actually see him being smart throughout the whole movie. Right from the start, he lays out a pretty solid plan to ruin Superman's reputation. He clones the Man of Steel to have a powerful weapon to go up against him, but he makes sure the clone doesn't have a mind of its own. It works like a weapon that only answers to Lex, so there's no risk of it turning on him like Doomsday did in Batman v Superman. Plus, Lex explains that he studied Superman's movements and powers for 3 full years, so he knows everything he can do like the back of his hand. He came up with 2,500 special moves to counter Superman, because he knows what Superman is going to do before even he does. Sure, Luthor can't fight Superman one-on-one since he doesn't have powers, but he can use his puppet to beat him, and it's all thanks to his brain. Instead of depending on outside forces he can't control, like Batman or Doomsday, this version of Lex uses his own smarts to take on Superman. He memorized all the moves himself, and runs the whole operation live, and in real time to take Superman down, something literally no one else on Earth could do.
So smart, me.
But Luthor's plan goes way beyond just making Superman look bad out of jealousy. Toward the end of the movie, we find out he actually supported the Baravian invasion of a neighboring country because he had already struck a deal with the president to take half of the new territory for himself. Of course, this doesn't work out because Superman and the planet crew uncover his plans and stop him. But unlike in Batman v Superman, it doesn't feel like Lex sabotaged his own scheme. Some people might say this Lex is also an idiot because he let one of his girlfriends take photos of all his secret plans. But in the second act, we see that Lex used to lock up his exes in his own private prison. He didn't think this bimbo was a threat to his plans because he was blinded by his ego and his belief that he's smarter than everyone else. It's a character flaw that actually makes sense in the story, and it lines up with how Luthor acts in the comics. If all that still isn't enough to convince you he's a real genius, Lex literally created a pocket universe without breaking a sweat. Even Mr. Terrific, who's one of the smartest people on Earth, says doing something like that would be super difficult. He basically admits he couldn't have pulled it off himself, which shows that Luthor really does have a next-level brain. Meanwhile, Eisenberg's version can't even brag about building a successful company because he flat out says he inherited it from his daddy.
Nepotism in its truest form.
The second reason why one Luthor works, and the other just makes you cringe, is their personality and on-screen presence. In most versions, Lex is weaker than Superman in every way, but he still feels threatening all the time, even without wearing his armor. Some artists, like Frank Quitely, draw Luthor as a total physical beast, while others, like Lionel Francis Yu, make him look slimmer and more refined. But no matter the version, the key is that we have to believe a regular human with no powers can be Superman's nemesis. To pull that off, he has to stay totally calm and confident, especially when he's face to face with Superman. Being smart and having evil plans isn't enough. He needs to be able to stand right in front of the Man of Steel and actually look more intimidating than him. But Eisenberg's Luthor is the exact opposite. He's like a mix between Mark Zuckerberg and Jim Carrey's Riddler. He's a weird, twitchy guy who randomly starts yelling and jumping around. He makes strange noises, bangs on tables, his voice cracks, he stutters, and talks to himself. He even cuts himself off mid-sentence to make it seem like his brain is moving faster than his mouth. It's super cringy because it doesn't match the tone of the movie, which is supposed to be all dark and serious. But the villain acts like a Looney Tunes character who forgot to take his meds. Worst of all, it kills any sense of presence this version of Luthor might have had. He comes off more like a hyped-up Sheldon Cooper than Superman's greatest enemy.
Now run! Bazinga!
When he's face to face with Superman, his hands shake, his voice breaks, and he even gets scared when Superman's eyes glow red. It doesn't help that Eisenberg's only about 5'7", which makes him over 4 inches shorter than Cavill. To make that difference less obvious, they had Cavill kneel down during their scene together, because otherwise Eisenberg would have looked super tiny. But even then, Eisenberg looks like a noodle next to Cavill, so he's not intimidating at all. It feels like Superman could snap him in half just by staring at him. Being fair, they added a scene at the start of the movie showing Lex playing basketball to suggest he's athletic, but he's nowhere near as physically imposing as the version in All-Star Superman or the animated series. On top of that, this version of Lex has trouble speaking in public. He gets nervous and seems socially awkward. In this scene, it even looks like he's about to have a panic attack in front of a crowd. Eisenberg plays that type of role really well, but the thing is, Luthor's supposed to be charming and confident. He should be able to talk to anyone without breaking a sweat. Even if he thinks everyone around him is just a bunch of bugs, he's supposed to make people believe he actually cares about them, so they admire him and feed his ego.
Everybody has to like me. I must be liked.
Nicholas Hoult, on the other hand, actually does look imposing, just like the Lex from the comics. The guy is 6'3", just an inch shorter than Cornsweat, so he can stand right in front of Superman and look him straight in the eye, without needing platform shoes to appear taller than he really is. That makes their first face-off work really well. Superman bursts into Lex's office, and they go eye to eye. When Lex stands up, you can see they're the same height, and even though he's not wearing a flashy costume, Lex still looks big. Hoult might not have done the same intense gym workouts as Cornsweat, but he's definitely in good shape. They even put him in tight suits so his muscles show through the clothes. Instead of looking soft like Eisenberg, this Lex is more like the one from All-Star Superman, who could intimidate anyone just by the way he looked. In this first meeting with Superman, we also see that he stands out more than Eisenberg thanks to his personality. He doesn't stutter, hesitate, or fumble around. He doesn't act like a kid trying to impress his parents. Instead, he's a cold, calculating genius eaten up by envy. His girlfriend and this other guy are practically peeing themselves when Superman barges in, but Lex stays totally cool and tells Eve to start recording. He doesn't raise his voice, but he doesn't back down either when Superman demands his dog back. He keeps it together the whole time, even grabbing his coffee before Superman throws his desk across the room.
It's what the Japanese call unagi.
That kind of behavior feels a lot like the Lex from Jeff Loeb's For All Seasons, a guy with an iron will who never cracks under pressure. This Lex genuinely believes he's better than Superman, even if he doesn't have superpowers. Plus, instead of having panic attacks when he's in public, Hoult is always the most commanding presence in any room he walks into. He can talk circles around politicians, military leaders, and even convince the whole world that Superman is a serious threat. He's totally steady when speaking to the most powerful people in the US, and he's perfectly comfortable talking on live television too. He even pretends to be scared after releasing Superman's message to the public, just to make the viewers feel afraid too. But for us, the audience, who've already seen what he's really like in earlier scenes, it's obvious he's faking it. He's not scared at all, but he's great at faking it, like a true manipulator. Lex's personality shifts in the second act, when Superman escapes the pocket universe. That's when we finally see him explode and start yelling because he feels powerless. But instead of being cringy like Eisenberg's Luthor, Hoult's version still feels threatening. At that point, he's more like the Luthor from Superman Birthright. He loses his composure, but still comes off as someone who thinks he's above everyone else. He even throws a mug on the floor on purpose, just so his staff will have to pick it up for him. Even in his worst moments, when it looks like Superman's about to win and everything's falling apart, this version of Luthor still feels menacing.
No, I'm afraid!
And now we get to the third reason, the most important one, Luthor's motivations and why he hates Superman. In the comics, Luthor and Superman represent two totally different sides of humanity. Superman stands for honesty, kindness, redemption, forgiveness, and hope. He's a symbol of growth, of being better and rising above. Luthor, on the other hand, represents humanity's worst traits: revenge, the desire to dominate, to humiliate others, selfishness, extreme individualism, envy, and deep resentment. These two are destined to clash because they represent opposite aspects of the human condition. On top of that, Luthor truly believes he's the peak of human potential, the ultimate example of what a person can become. He's obsessed with a twisted idea of merit and success. But then Superman shows up, someone who can do the impossible without even trying, just because he has different genes. To make things worse, this alien is adored by the public, something Lex desperately wants but can never truly have, because many people see him as a monster. Eisenberg's Luthor drifts pretty far from this concept. Sure, he wants to destroy Superman's public image and show he's a fake god, but his main motivation is that his dad used to beat him when he was a kid. He prayed to God for help, but no one came to rescue him. So he decided God either wasn't all-powerful, or if he is, then he must not be good, because he let his suffering continue. When he grew up and met Superman, Lex relived that childhood trauma, because he saw someone who could be considered a modern-day god. He felt the need to expose him, since he believes all gods are fake.
He's a fake. He's full of stickum.
That motivation could have been interesting for a DC villain, but the main issue is that it's not really about Superman specifically. Lex could have aimed his anger at any metahuman, because a lot of writers portray the Justice League as modern gods. In fact, it would have made way more sense for him to target Wonder Woman, who's literally the daughter of a god. Lex knows Diana exists, but for some reason, he's totally fine with her. That was a mess. But Hoult's Luthor actually does line up way more with the Lex from the comics. He tries to make himself king of his own country, because he's obsessed with power, wealth, total control, and recognition. He straight up says he wants everyone to admire him, and he gets offended when people compare him to historical figures like Galileo or Einstein. That shows how massive his ego is. He genuinely thinks he's the most important person on Earth. What's interesting is that no one in the movie actually makes those comparisons out loud. Most likely, it's just his employees hyping him up to stroke his ego, but nobody outside of Luthor Corp really sees him that way. Meanwhile, the world is head over heels for Superman, who just has to smile and save people to win everyone's hearts. That drives Lex crazy with jealousy, because in his twisted view of humanity, he thinks Superman makes regular humans look weak and pathetic. He feels the Man of Steel has an unfair advantage, because he sees himself as the smartest person in history. But he also knows he'll never be as fast or strong as Superman.
You're not Superman, you know.
This version of Lex believes that killing Superman will help humanity reach real progress without relying on aliens who were born with special powers. He thinks he's doing humanity a favor, but in reality, he's in love with the idea of humanity, not actual people. That's why he feels no guilt after killing this man. Later on in the movie, he even says all of Superman's supporters should be left to die too, and he's willing to sacrifice all of Metropolis just for a shot at beating Superman. Where Eisenberg's Luthor feels like a random villain of the week who could have fought any DC hero, Hoult's Lex is the perfect nemesis for Superman. He represents the complete opposite, just like in the comics. Maybe if the Luthor we saw in Batman v Superman hadn't been such a clown, that movie wouldn't have been so controversial, and maybe the old DCU wouldn't have gone downhill. It's a shame, because it really had a lot of potential and started off strong. I talk all about the rise and fall of the DCU in this video.
No, ma'am.